In a few days' time, 2022 will have arrived. Just think about the number 2022 for a little bit. Did you think we'd get here? Because I find myself wondering how the hell I'm still alive. Now we know how some people felt when it was going from the year 1999 to the year 2000. Anyways, 2021 was the year of the turning point for me. To explain why, I'll rewind events starting from January and quickly go on from there. January was the start of my last semester of my undergraduate college years. Despite the effects of the pandemic, we have been able to remain in person for lectures, extracurricular activities, and parties, even if some outbreaks on campus put those events on hold for a while. Other than that, nothing else eventful happened. As the months slowly passed, I found myself swamped with an ever-increasing amount of workload, whether it be from senior projects or from tutoring underclassmen to prepare them for upcoming finals. It didn't help that I had my own exams to prepare for. Additionally, I had to consider my future after graduation. Do I start my career in the engineering field or further pursue education in graduate school? Both options were good, but required serious thought. So in the meantime, I applied to several full-time jobs into a few graduate schools. All that was left for me to do was to play the waiting game while I finished up my semester. A few weekend parties, 2 finished senior projects, and 3 final exams later, graduation day arrives in May. All things considered, I was lucky to have a graduation day. It was a little different though because, Max. The university had to split the graduating class 3 ways based on degree type. It was a good idea, since we all wanted to hear our own names being called to the stage to receive the certificate and to get out of there afterwards. I would estimate that it took around 3 or 4 hours for the ceremony to complete. Now that that's out of the way, I found myself being thrown into taking photos with family and friends for half an hour. It was a windy day, so the weather might have had a bone to pick with us and try to take our caps away or give us a wardrobe malfunction. And for the final night together, we had our last hoorah at a bar. Sounds somewhat anticlimactic, but we kept the night going strong, up until about 2 a.m. We had our final goodbyes, and early in the morning, I departed home into the sunrise, leaving behind good friends and watching as the university I had formerly attended disappear into the vast scenery of cities, mountains, and forests. It turned out that my pursuit for education was not yet over. In September, 1 bachelor's degree and a summer internship period later, here I am in New York City, the most populous American city, if I'm not mistaken. It is the melting pot of personality and culture, the Big Apple, the 5 boroughs, the city that never sleeps, you name it. It is simply the city. About a few weeks prior in August, I took the time to fly here to the city for apartment hunting for a few days. There were a lot of details about the city to point out, but the first thing I was exposed to was the transit system. The best transportation method to have without a car of your own. Especially so. Hop on a train or bus and go anywhere in the city, and forget the car. Oh, and forget the Uber too. I have no idea how other people manage to have a car in such a crowded city of about 8 million or so people. All I see on the roads are impatient drivers honking for all eternity and willing to run people in other cars alike over just to get to their destination 2 milliseconds faster. But I suppose that's just NYC culture behind the wheel, for better or for worse. Moving on to the next big detail, convenience is rather unbeatable, at least compared to the other major cities I've been to. Need a quick grocery trip? A grocery store is the next block over. Want some Chinese food? The local Chinese cuisine has a box of food with your name written on it 2 blocks south of you. Want to mingle a little bit? A bar is sitting across the street. Get what I mean? If you need or want something, chances are that you're most likely going to find it within a 2-block radius. Unless you have something specific in mind, like a concert, you wouldn't need to go too far. So with the great big benefits of transportation and convenience, there has to be a drawback to counter this, right? Yep, price. Is it a big drawback? For everyday purchases, not necessarily. I believe on average that I see about a $2 to $3 increase in grocery items compared to what I've seen back home. However, when we look into apartment renting costs, expensive is an understatement. In states like Mississippi or South Carolina, 800 square foot apartments go for about $800 to $900 per month. In New York City, consider yourself lucky if you manage to find a 500 square foot 1-bedroom apartment less than $2,500 a month. Even more so if there is a washer dryer in unit. Even then you may have to deal with broker fees, which amounts to 50% of the yearly rent. So, forget the prices you see when shopping around. Apartments in the city are way more than enough to break the bank, and then some. So now, back to my apartment hunting adventure. After 2 full days of apartment searching, I came across a somewhat spacious 1-bedroom unit right next to a train station. A huge boon for convenience right there. Moreover, no broker fee for this unit is required since the owner herself is renting the unit out. No one else is applying for this unit, so I take my chance to do so. That marked the end of my search. I fly back home, the paperwork for the unit is settled, and the unit is mine for a year. Moving back forward to September, move-in is complete and a new academic journey begins to pursue a master's degree within a full year. For the first few weeks of September, I took the time to explore Brooklyn and Manhattan, looking to see what the popular places are about. I can't really say much here because I've never stayed in one place long enough for something exciting to happen, but simply exploring the city was excitement enough for me. I love looking at the scenery, so I looked for the best places to view the Manhattan skyline, because just looking at it once isn't good enough. My exploration of the city would have to wait though, because it quickly became apparent that studying in graduate school was not to be taken lightly. Any plans I had made in October to visit a variety of restaurants, bars, and other venues were quickly struck down by projects, presentations, and exams. The work needed to complete any assignment required serious dedication as compared to what was required in my high school and undergraduate years. Let's just say that a week's worth of analyzing an assignment or studying for a midterm exam is nowhere near enough to maintain at least a 3.0 GPA. I learned that the hard way. Take medical imaging, for example. This course required some prerequisite knowledge of computer programming languages such as MATLAB, something which I had done plenty of in the past. As it turns out, that was just the bare minimum. What this course really required was advanced knowledge of some of the medical equipment commonly used in hospitals and in laboratories. Unfortunately for me, I had almost no knowledge, not even the basic concepts, of some of said equipment. Even worse, formulas. The Fourier transform was scary enough for me. I can't even remember the other formulas discussed in lecture. The professor expected students to have already known those. I saw I was in big trouble when the homework assignments for this class was borderline impossible to complete. Then, the midterm exam. It kicked my ass and took my lunch money and any hopes and dreams of achieving at least a 3.5 GPA. It didn't help that my prepared cheat sheet, which was a lot on the exam, was not of much use to me. It also didn't help that I took a week before the exam to reread and rewrite every single piece of lecture notes and homework assignments. Near the end of the exam, I surveyed the room and saw the look of solemn defeat on most of my fellow students' faces. Seems like I'm not the only person anxious about taking this class. So you may wonder if the other classes I took this semester were similarly challenging. Well, one other class is also very difficult, but the remaining 2 classes are much easier, relatively speaking. The 2 classes I'm thinking of right now are classes that seem to serve as a smooth transition between undergraduate studies and graduate studies. Think anatomy and statistics. Those classes either allow multiple pages of cheat sheets or guide you through examples so that homework assignments don't seem so daunting. So now this means I took 2 relatively easier classes and 2 very challenging classes this semester. I've had to find a balance of leisure, work, and study for those 4 courses for October, November, and December. And now back to my medical imaging class. The midterm exam scores came back at the end of October. 49 out of 100. Yep, I was prepared to see a failing score the moment I finished the exam. But it did not take away from the sinking feeling in my heart. A 49 out of 100 is an F. Naturally, I panicked, and I set up a meeting with the professor. Somewhat surprisingly, a 49 was nowhere near a failing grade in this class, in his exact words. And I say somewhat surprisingly because I think I should have known that there will always be a curve, especially in graduate school. Of course there is a curve in this class, how could there not be one? Anyway, I felt relieved after hearing this, but to prevent such a shock from occurring again, I rewrote notes and assignments after each lecture from here on out. This translated to me doing the same thing for the other 3 courses. Basically, as November began, I spent more time looking over notes for my classes than ever before. Pushing through projects in the weeks of November, the burnout for studying came. It didn't help that I had 3 final exams in a span of 4 days, and right when Christmas is around the corner. Once the first week of December was over, it was back to rereading and rewriting notes and assignments again. even if I started 2.5 weeks away from the first final exam. I remember the shocking feeling when I received that 49 score on that midterm exam. Never again, I told myself. Wrong. As the final exams drew closer, I found myself more mentally fatigued with each passing day. Eventually, I was gripped by a sense of hopelessness and lost the urgency to study. Don't worry, I still did, just not with the motivation to retain any information, even though I did learn and remembered much more than I thought was possible. Never mind the fact that I had to study for 3 challenging finals exams. Cheat sheets aside, how can one remember so much in a span of 2.5 weeks, let alone a whole semester? The first final exam came, did even worse than this class's midterm exam. The second final exam came, did even worse than that class's midterm exam. The third and final exam came. You know what happened. I didn't care. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford in those hellish weeks, but I deserved it. Give me a 0 on all the exams. To hell with it all. Finals is over. 2 weeks after finals, and after mentally recovering from the stress and anxiety of it all, I was back to exploring the city. Hell yeah. Given the free time that I am now awarded, until the end of January to be specific, I can be free to have fun in the city, and to sit here in front of you right now and, well, talk about my struggles these past few months. In summary of what I have explained, it was a roller coaster of an academic journey for this graduate student, with every super tight turn of the track representing a new week of work I kinda wish I was never on. But here I am. In the end, I passed all of my classes, not with flying colors or anything, but I definitely don't have to worry about any sort of academic probation or something like that. As for how I'm doing online, I haven't exactly been active on this channel, of course because of school and work, and I probably will be just as inactive when school starts back up at the end of January. There's always work to be done. And now I'll take the time to anticipate any questions you might have. Is graduate school really worth it? It depends on the major you're pursuing. For me, I'm pursuing a master's degree in biomedical engineering, spending a year in NYC for this. So far, I think it's worth it. To me at least. A lot of full-time jobs related to my degree require some experience in a laboratory or clinical settings. By entering graduate school here, I'm given plenty of research opportunities to help me fulfill such requirements, thus opening up more doors to start my engineering career. It sounds noble, I guess, but it requires a lot of work. But then again, if you didn't like the work you would be doing, you wouldn't consider going for a master's. Is graduate school hard compared to undergraduate work? This also simply isn't a yes or no question. It mainly depends on if you undertook any research work before graduate school, on if you truly learned from your undergraduate classes, and if you believe you enjoyed the learning experience from graduate school. In your undergraduate studies, you may come across research opportunities. These opportunities welcome anyone who is new to research in general. Should you choose to take those, some concepts that you may see in graduate school may be familiar once you have research experience under your belt. For your undergraduate studies, you may have taken a course that was really easy, and yet you are excited to learn more about it. Chances are, there may be a class in graduate school that introduces advanced topics on that class you really enjoy. You may end up thriving in graduate school if you find that same enjoyment there. I should also note that most, if not all, undergraduate curriculums require you to take classes that don't relate to your major of interest, such as liberal arts studies and economics in my case. Everything you take in a graduate curriculum has everything to do with your major of interest. Not one class you take will relate to anything else. In other words, you choose all the classes without being forced to take non-related classes that you want to take in a graduate curriculum. Those classes should be those that you are most interested in. If you take a class that you somewhat like, chances are that the class will be of less interest to you when more advanced topics are introduced. So to answer your question, yes, graduate school is hard if you find classes generally difficult to deal with. And no, graduate school isn't hard if you're extremely passionate about the major you're pursuing. And for a non-school related question, will I continue with YouTube and or Twitch? I will have to find a way to ease back into posting on YouTube. Twitch will be a no-go though. I simply can't find a few hours to stream, even on weekends. Maybe once I've settled into a routine that is unlikely to change, I could do something with streaming, but that's about a year or two into the future. That's about it for my 2021 story. I earned a bachelor's degree, worked some more, and am currently attending graduate school. while I went somewhat MIA on YouTube and was nowhere to be found on Twitch. The thing is, I think my story so far would have remained the same if the pandemic wasn't a thing, but it is what it is. I have no idea how 2022 will be any different. Wherever the wind takes me, I guess. I think that's how the saying goes. Anyways, thank you for listening to my story. Here's to a happy new year. Look after yourselves and stay healthy. Omega out.